Hello, my name is Michele, and you're listening to Profit is a Choice.
Joining me on the podcast today is Alyce Lopez. Alyce owns and operates The True House, which is a full-service interior design firm that specializes in residential design for busy young families. Alyce began her career in interior design after purchasing a fixer-upper with her husband. She describes it as a 1950s rambler, and learned so much, documented it, and her business just blew up. She also has young children who are at home. She's a mom and a wife and a business owner. And in our conversation today, we're going to talk about family and seasons and success and what it looks like in different seasons. And then how to pour grace on ourselves because, that's a lot to manage. Many of us are probably at home during COVID at this point listening. And I can promise you, trying to manage being a teacher, which many of us are now having to do, along with being a business owner and then a wife, a mom, or a husband, all of those things kind of combined into one is really a load to carry. And so some of us have to carry it all the time and some only during times of business disruption. But regardless, all of this conversation, I think, will be super helpful in helping us prioritize, think about each season, align our priorities, and make a plan forward. I hope you enjoyed the podcast.
Every day, empowered entrepreneurs are taking ownership of their company financial health and enjoying the rewards of reduced stress and more creativity. With my background as a financial software developer, owner of multiple businesses in the interior design industry, educator, and speaker, I coach women in the interior design industry to increase their profits, regain ownership of their bottom line, and to have fun again in their business. Welcome to Profit is a Choice. Hey, Alyce, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you, Michele. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. I am excited about the topic of our conversation today. You and I were speaking, maybe about a month ago on a different topic, and this one came up, and we both were like, this would be a really great conversation to have, and then to invite other people in to see what they think. So thank you for talking all about having a business and building a business while trying to raise a family of young people all at the same time, because it's a big juggling act.
It is, absolutely.
Alyce, let's start, if you don't mind, about the whole business. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started.
Sure. So I got started about 4 years ago. I had a background in design, graphic design, and that kind of organically led me to interior design. We actually bought a fixer-upper and we documented kind of the renovations. I did not know what I was doing at all, but obviously I had experience in design as far as aesthetics and things like that. I knew that I was passionate about that. I was super excited to buy a fixer-upper and renovate. I wasn't afraid of that. So that just kind of progressed, and I got some people reaching out to me on Facebook or Instagram asking questions and asking if I could help them. And then I just kind of took a leap of faith, not knowing what I was getting myself into. And the business took off a little faster than I thought it would have.
When you say it took off, now tell me this. So when you started, I'm assuming you started as a home-based business and still are?
Correct. Yes, I have a home office.
And did you start when you began working with people that you didn't know, or was it family, friends, and acquaintances, and then it started growing out of that?
The first thing that I did was I had a friend of mine who wanted some throw pillows for her living room. And I said, sure, let's go shopping together. I was a stay-at-home mom, so I had the time to do that. And we went out shopping, picked out some pillows, and came back and styled her sofa. And then I asked her if she would share photos of the before and after on a Facebook page, a local Facebook page. And she did. And then it just kind of grew from there. I had strangers that were asking me to come help them and do a consultation. And I said yes, and it kind of grew from there.
Okay, so now let me ask you this. When you first started, it sounds like you were not planning for the crazy success that you've had. I'm assuming you didn't go into this with a full-blown business plan. It was more of an organic oh, this sounds fun. I'm enjoying doing this. Let me help you. Is that true? Or did you have, when you went to go choose those first pillows with her, did you have a plan?
I did. I did have a plan. It was not a hobby, that's for sure. I didn't know how quickly it would grow or what the financial reward of it would be, but I just thought, we need the money. I've got to go back to work. And my kids were, I want to say, they were like 3 and 5 or 2 and 4, because my daughter was not in kindergarten yet. So they were, to me, they were babies. And I didn't want to go back to work 9 to 5, but we were kind of at a place where I needed to do something more. So I did have a website. I created my website myself. I had a plan, I had pricing and all of that. So it wasn't just, hey, let me see if this works. It was, we really got to make this work or else I'm going back to work 9 to 5.
Okay, good. So when you started with that plan, then Alyce, did you have an idea of how many hours you were going to work a week, or what kind of time investment you were going to be putting into this? Or was it more of a plan on the financial marketing website? Let's see what it turns out to look like over here. Like, what kind of boundaries did you have when you started?
Well, Michele, my kids were in preschool and money was tight, so they could not go to preschool full time. And I liked having them home with me. So they went to preschool on Tuesday, Thursdays from 1 to 4. And that's when I saw clients.
Right. It sounds so much like, my story all those years ago. Well, 20 years ago now. I started my interiors company when my kids were 2 and 4.
How funny.
Yeah, and they're now 22 and 24. Well, 25 when this comes out. And they were just on the podcast as grown-ups, as adults. One of them already totally out of the home, the other graduating from college in a month. And I did the same thing. I started working whenever they were in Mother's Morning Out. And my oldest, I think, was in like 4-year-old preschool. And so my hours to work with clients was whenever I had childcare. And then over the years, it expanded as, their time away from me expanded.
Sure. Yeah. I think clients thought I was really busy because I would tell them I only have an appointment on Tuesday at 1:30. That gave me enough time to drop them off and go drive to the appointment. And then I would say, oh, okay, well, I could take you Thursday at 1:30. I would just pretend like I was really busy. And those were the only time slots that I could have FaceTime.
Well, and you know what? I think no matter what size your business is, that's not a bad thing to do, is to be very clear and identify, here's the time that I have available to work with clients. Because I think it set up some good boundaries, if you will, even for myself, when I knew that, it was impossible for me to meet with a client at 4:00 in the afternoon if I didn't have childcare and they weren't in their preschool program. And so it made me do a couple of things. I'm curious to see if it did it for you. One, it made me, again, very intentional about getting my work done within that time as much as I possibly could.
Sure.
Like I said, my husband's been on the podcast, as have the boys. And yes, I had some nights and weekends and extra time. But I did a heck of a lot of my work while they were both being cared for in some type of a school program. And so that was good. So it kept me intentional to get it done. But then that carried over once my time and my opportunity to work more expanded. I had already, kind of established some really good practices around all of that. And I didn't have to then create it.
Right. Yeah, 100%. We don't see clients, like you said. My kids are now 5 and 7. I'm sorry, 7 and 9. Holy smokes, I'm way off. My kids are 7 and 9 right now. So, their bell rings around 3:00. And I like to be home when they get home. My husband's actually a school teacher. So we've kind of set up, this routine. I take them to school in the mornings and then he holds on to them in the afternoon. But Thursdays are really the only day where I take a late appointment. And so I'll take an appointment at 4 and it's done by 5:30. I'm home by 6. But every other day of the week, I'm not seeing clients past 4 p.m. at all. And I don't work weekends either. Of course, there's the occasional something comes up, but maybe in the last 4 years, I've taken 2 Saturday appointments.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. Looking back, I am absolutely appreciative of the fact that I had such tight boundaries on my time.
Mm-hmm.
And, I remember even having moments where I would start to, I feel guilty that I couldn't meet with a client at a certain time. And then I realized, wait a minute, it is what it is. When I started calling the orthodontist to get an appointment, they didn't feel bad telling me that he didn't work on Fridays. They're like, he works Monday through Thursday. Here are the times. Choose one. And I just chose one, and I didn't think anything about it. You call for any appointment for a service provider. They just told me what they had available. And so when I looked back over my own kind of career and the way I'd done things, I realized it actually was better for me and better for others if I knew and had set those boundaries around this is what I have available and this is what I can do, and then just doing the best that I could within that. And it sounds like yours has been very, very similar. And then your working day has expanded over the last 4 years.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Even, when they were in, my firstborn was in kinder, it was like the other one was still in preschool and wasn't in full day preschool. So it's kind of evolved. And then I remember when the kids both were in school, when I had a kindergartner and a second grader, it was like, oh my gosh, they're both in school, from 8 to 3. Like, that's so much time to work. If you're focused and you're intentional with your time, that's so much time to work.
Yeah, I remember my husband's like, why are you so excited for them to go to school? And I'm like, well, number one, they can use the socialization. So I'm so glad that they're going, and they're, we're driving each other crazy at home for the summer now. But this means I have expanded work hours, and I was excited about what I was doing, and I wanted to do it. So, okay, so when you started this, Alyce, did you have any idea that it would be what it is today in 4 short years?
No idea. I mean, I had never worked a job that made this much money, to be honest. I don't want to make it about the money, but this is a profit first podcast. But I wasn't expecting that kind of financial reward, I guess. I thought I had worked as a manager for Starbucks for years and had a few other jobs, but I just never knew that this was an option for me as an entrepreneur. I guess I hadn't dabbled in it enough to know that those opportunities were out there.
When you started, did you consider yourself to be a part-time business owner, or did that even come into your way of thinking? Or was it just, I've started a business and here is the time I have to put into it? Like, what was your mindset when you started? Do you remember?
Sure. It was part-time, and I think it slowly evolved into what it is today. I think, it always worked around the kids and their schedule.
So how would you describe it today? Is it still part-time? Is it 3/4 time, or just a flex time job? Or how would you describe it?
Today, I mean, I wouldn't say that I don't think that I work a 40-hour week every week. My kids have early release on Fridays. So Fridays tend to be a half day. And then, this week, for example, we have parent-teacher conferences, so I have to duck out, early out of my work day. And then they had an award assembly, so I had to pop out of that. So, that takes time out of your week. And I don't typically work nights, so I don't really make up the hours that I spend at school with the kids or other things like that. But I'd say I probably put in on average like 30 hours a week.
Okay, so I mean, that's easy, a 3/4 time job, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, as you have allowed your business to grow, how have you managed to kind of hold the reins back? That was kind of the phrase that you and I were talking about, was holding back the reins. Because your business could probably do even more than it's doing right now, but you have made, along with your husband, a family decision, a conscious decision to recognize that your own success is not just in the ability to grow, but then in the ability to be able to be mom and wife in addition to business owner.
Sure. Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, we can always grow. And I have, I had a full-time employee working for me last year. I've had a couple part-times in the past. And honestly, I go back and forth. I don't think there's a right or wrong. And I'm still trying to figure out, how do I want to move forward? I've kind of plateaued at this point, and I feel like I'm at my max level. So moving forward, do I just want to find contentment in that and sustain this business, for a couple more years when the kids are a little bit older? Or do I want to really commit to hiring somebody here that can help us grow? And what does that look like long term? I don't know. There's a lot of questions to answer there.
And so what are some of the considerations that you're thinking about with that? I think it's interesting. Part of our prior conversation was, an idea that to grow or to scale, it needs to look one way or another way. And there's really it's like this continuum, right? So your growth could be in streamlining your processes and streamlining the things that you do to be more efficient. Now you can actually take more work than you could have taken before, and you can raise your rates, and you can make more money without having to work more. Scaling could be moving out of your home and having a space. Scaling could be hiring someone or hiring multiple someones, or it could even be just working less and making more. You know what I mean? There's so many ways that we can look at it. I guess my overriding question to you is, what do you think are the top one or two things that inform your decision making, or that have the bigger weight in your decision making?
Well, I'd say definitely my family and just the season that we're in right now. I don't want to compromise the time that I have with them. And it's not just, when you've got these big stressful projects or you're running 1,000,000 miles a minute, it's hard to turn that off on the weekends when you're connecting with your family or friends or whatever, so I feel like I have to keep that in check. And obviously there's seasons, there's times when it does feel that way and I'm really stressed out. And then we say, hey, let's book a little weekend getaway and turn everything off and connect as a family again. So yeah, I don't know that there's one way or another.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think there is. Do you find that you and your husband sit down and have these conversations? Like my husband and I would sit down and we literally had a conversation. How do we want our children to come home from school? Do we want me to be there? Do we want someone else to be there? Do we want them to be in an after-school program? We would have the conversation, how much money do we need and what are we willing to do to earn that money? What are we not willing to do? How do we want our time, mine and his, to be handled for after work? How do we want to spend our time on the weekends? What do we want our family to remember? What are we willing to have and not have? Even as far as the things that money could buy or the homes that we might live in or cars that we might drive. I mean, we very much sat and talked about, I guess in a way, understanding, Alyce, that there's a trade-off to everything. If he or I could have gone back into corporate at any point and chose not to. If both of us had chosen to work jobs like we were working right before I came home, we're leaving at 6 and 7 in the morning, come back home at 7 at night. There is not as much opportunity to get to all of those kid events. Other people were helping us in the raising of our children. Not that there's anything wrong with any of all that, but it wasn't what we wanted. And I'm just curious if you and your spouse have sat down and had these full-on conversations. What do we want it to be like in our home, and what are we willing to do together and not willing to do? Because I know you two, like you said, you're working it out together for both of you.
Right.
And I know I just had the Corals, Chandler and Jeremy on, and they were having a conversation about they own their company together and they have a little one, and so how they're trying to manage life and business and the intentionality of the conversation.
Absolutely. I feel blessed because we see eye to eye. My husband and I see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. So, for example, we decided recently that we were going to refinance our house down to a 15-year mortgage. And that's important to us as to where our money goes and how we spend it and what that means as far as how that impacts our lifestyle or whatever. Same thing with the kids. We like that the kids get to come home after school, or that mom picks them up or mom drops them off. That's important to us. We do enjoy taking a vacation at least once a year. So it's important for me to work so that we have the finances to pay for that kind of stuff. We want to live debt free. That's also important to us. So I think a lot of the decisions we make around my business, we talk about those kinds of things. Like, what does that mean long term for our family and our finances and the years to come?
Yeah, that sounds very much like what we have done as well. I think you and I talked about this. We're both big Dave Ramsey fans, and of course,
yes,
the profit first. So, we have chosen to live debt free, and it makes us show up in a different way in the world than we would otherwise. And so, having to kind of, in some ways, make peace with those decisions and what we're doing and how we're doing it. But I can tell you there's certainly a freedom in it, even though it's not, what is it Dave says, live like nobody else today, so you can live
later,
like nobody else tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there is a freedom in it. We're blessed that both boys are getting ready to be out of college. We're debt-free from that. They're debt-free from that. And we can now keep moving in our lives without feeling like we have this weight of hundreds of thousands of dollars that we have to pick up or that they have to pick up. And so, that came with a lot of intention many years prior to them going off to school. And so one of the things that I'm curious about is, sometimes in the media, in social media, in certain settings, I think it's gotten better today, but there's this idea that success, and we'll talk about it even just within our industry, that success is kind of qualified and quantified by X number of dollars. You have to have X number of staff. You've got to have a space outside of your home. You know what I mean? There are these.
Yes.
There's this idea that there is a very narrow definition of success. And I don't feel like that at all. I don't think the definition is narrow. Tell me what you think about that. And then I want to talk about the guilt, if you will, or the second guessing that comes from kind of hanging out on social media too much. But what do you think about the narrow definition of success?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's interesting. We glorify busy. I mean, that's kind of something I've been thinking about. Like, it's so great to be busy. I'm busy. How are you? I'm busy, and busy's not always good. And there's seasons for everything. For me, every year, right around January, February, March is my slowest time of year. And sometimes I panic and I'm like, oh my gosh, busy. I need more jobs. And then I think this is such a great time to work on my processes, to work on, curating my social media, making a plan for that, or working on brand collaborations, like doing other things that are important. And especially in our industry, you have to stay inspired. If you're like on that hamster wheel all the time, it's really hard to have vision and creativity. So I think those slower seasons are really great. And I think you have to determine what success means to you. And I think when I first got into the industry, I was like, I just wanted to know, like, what is everybody doing? How much money is everybody making? Like, how do I know that I've made it? How do I know that I'm legitimate and that I belong here? And I think I'm slowly coming to a place of like, what works for me may not work for you. And only I can define what success is. And for me, it's to live a life with no regrets. I want to look back and say, I remember taking the kids out for ice cream on Fridays because it was, early release, or I remember hosting cocktails in the front porch for the neighbors on the weekends. I want to have, a meaningful life, and our work could be gone tomorrow, but relationships and family are so much more important to me. And that doesn't mean that I don't give my work 100% and that I don't love what I do. I think actually it impacts that even more so. I'm very intentional when I design to create spaces that embrace that sense of community and connection and create room for family time and large tables for Friendsgiving and large coffee tables for Scrabble, all of that stuff. But I really, truly think that as an individual and as, a part of a family, you have to determine what success means to you.
I love that. Also, I think that we have equated busy with worthy. Not just with success, but kind of that even deeper meaning of it. I am worthy, or I'm okay. And so being equally okay with saying, you know what, I'm not swamped. I'm not super busy. I'm as busy as I want to be.
Yeah.
And being okay in that. But what's so interesting to me is all of the businesses that I'm coaching, I don't even know of one of them that's saying to me, I am not busy. What they're all saying to me is, help me create white space. Help me create time to focus. Help me create this time to breathe. And I know even in my own 20 years of self-employment, if you will, I mean, I've fallen into the trap of thinking that my business was great because I was busy, and not realizing that busyness was, for me, was way over busy, and it was killing me. I mean, it was really killing me. I was having major health issues and didn't even know it.
Yeah.
And it was from the stress and the overwork and the striving. And you know what? We cannot run our businesses. I do not believe that there's something about hustle, and we're to hustle, but we don't need to be, I call it on the soul cycle, all day, every day. There is no way. If our business was a Peloton, we could not be on it every single day, all day. We would be exhausted. We would be dragging. We would not be effective. And so we have got to take a chance to take a step back from the Peloton, right? We cannot be on that thing. I can't cheer you on to stay in that type of an environment, to go. It is not good, and it is not healthy for us. Yet I think that in some strange way, we have equated, like you mentioned, all of that with success, or, to my point, our worth.
Yeah. And it's the comparison, and we all fall into it. And I think I've had to step back and go, everybody has a different life circumstance. Not everybody has children. Some people are taking care of their grandparents or their parents. Some people have gone through a traumatic loss recently. Some people have gone through a huge move. Like, we're all going through different things in life, and you don't know, based on a professional photo on an Instagram feed, what's behind that story. And I think we need to be better about that. I know I'm trying to be better about that, about being vulnerable and talking about, more of like the real struggles. And, it's not always easy. There are seasons where I've gone to the ER with a migraine, and you learn, you're like, okay, listen to the red flags. Don't take those clients, but you live and you learn. It's not always perfect. And I think there is value in learning how to turn it off and be able to leave your work and move on and be present, with the things that are important to you.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I couldn't even have said it even better. And, what I'm looking for out of my business has changed over the years. Like you, when it first started, I was looking for a way to express my creativity. Yeah. And I was looking to make what I would call side hustle money, because I knew that it was not full time, because I had a 2-year-old and 4-year-old. Like, I wasn't even thinking it would be full time. It ended up quickly taking more like the 25 to 30 hours when I was thinking it might be 15 to 20. So it certainly expanded. And I was doing some nights and weekends because they were so little after my husband came home. But, my idea of what I needed the business to do for me and for our family started off in one direction. And then, over the years, it has grown and it has expanded. And I know one of the things that there are two things that I always read. One of them, and this is when I sent my first kid off to college, Rob Lowe had done some type of an article. He was sending his son off to college as well. Mm-hmm. And one of the things he said was, never compare your insides to somebody else's outsides. Mm-hmm. Right? So never look and think about internally what's going on with you and compare it to the highlight reel that others put out. It's always been a good reminder for me. And the second thing is, and I even read it like on a Toby Mac thing today, something like, be careful not to judge other people for their choices. You don't know the options they had to choose from.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times when we're looking at it, like, I know what our need for my business was as a family. I don't know what other people need from their business. I also don't know what they're willing to give up. Right? Or what they're willing to trade off, because we all are making trade-offs all day, every day, for what we think is important or not important. And so I don't know that. We're not always sharing that. yeah, you can have this awesome business and you're working 65 hours a week and you've got 14 nannies and you never see your family. And, if we knew all of that, we might make a different choice. We might make the same one if we had to. But we don't know the whole circumstances.
We don't, yeah. You don't know the story and why, some people, it's like you may need to work nights and weekends because, your finances, you need to clean some stuff up or get out of debt or who knows, when we were young and we wanted to get out of debt, I worked at a Montessori and on my, lunch hour, I would teach ballet classes. And then when I left the Montessori and I was working at a chiropractor, I would still drive on my lunch break to teach those ballet classes at the Montessori. And it was like, I was working so many jobs and my husband was doing the same thing because we wanted to be debt free, but that was a season. And I think, like you said, you can't be on the bike 24/7. You have to know when it's like, it's served its purpose and it's time to move on,
Right. The other thing I always wanted to do as we talk about this whole balance, and all of this is really about having profitable lives, right? Mm-hmm. And like you said, I mean, you are extremely blessed. You have an excellent business. You're making good money. But it's not just all about that. It's about that in combination with having profitable relationships like you've described, profitable communication with your family. I mean, there's so much more to be profitable in than just the finances. We want that, but we don't want that at the expense of everything else. Right. And so, as you've done that, have you found anything that you can share that has helped you with the balance, or how do you turn it off, or just anything that you can offer that might help somebody who's like, oh my gosh, I'm in a similar situation. How do I do that? Yeah. Like, do you limit your time on social media? Right. There's so much that sucks us in.
Totally. Yeah, I do. I try, at night, I flip my phone down or, I'll turn on the night mode so I don't get all the alerts. So I'll do that so that I'm not on my phone 24/7. I try to plan my social media ahead of time so that I can just post it and not post it and go through all the feed or whatever. But, I also think it's important to connect with other people on social media as well. But, I'm guilty. My daughter, sometimes she calls me Instagram head. And I'm like, what did you just call me? Because she sees me on my phone. I think for social media, I try to not be on it once the kids are home. There's the occasional time that I hop on or on the weekends, or if I'm capturing content and the kids are home, then obviously I'm on it. But I try not to really engage a ton on social media when the kids are home. And when the kids are the age that mine are, it's like they come home and they get their own little break. They can watch TV for a little bit. So I try to okay, if they're going to be on their device, I'll be on mine for 30 minutes, and then it's like, I have to be present because the homework has to be done. And my husband's great. Recently, he started cooking dinner in the last year. So that was like a huge transition. So I think as a woman, sometimes that was always my responsibility. And that was a hard transition for me to just accept that and say, you know what, you're way better at this than me. And that's okay. And he's a teacher. So the last thing he wants to do is homework with the kids. So it works out great that he comes home and he cooks dinner. And then I work on the homework with the kids because I haven't seen them. They've been at school all day. So we try to have a pretty good routine. And I think the boundaries, like the scheduling, I use Acuity scheduling, which I think is what you use as well. And that's great because you can set your hours on there. And so I really can't take appointments outside of that. Like you cannot book a weekend appointment on there or an evening appointment. So having those boundaries in place ahead of time, I think really helps. It doesn't put you in a situation where you feel like you've compromised one thing over the other.
Yeah, I think sometimes having to have those hard stops helps us do that, right? Yeah, I mean, like when I had to pick the kids up from school, there was no, I can work a few extra minutes. It was, I had to be done to go get into the carpool line, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so in some ways that was really helpful. But like you, I use my calendar. I even now, I've gotten better about it. I have to even type in the word lunch. Because if not, I could easily blow right through lunch and then, have a string of afternoon events that I can't even get to. And I was laughing that you made a comment that your daughter was, kind of picking on you for being on Instagram sometimes. I don't know if in the podcast the boys did, I think it was Harrison, the oldest, his comment was, yeah, we always thought Mom just made money playing on Facebook.
Yeah.
Because he would see me on Facebook. But what I was doing was connecting. I was in groups with people. And, we just found ways like you to work around it. My husband, he works in tech, and he's willing to come home and help do the laundry. So all of these things aren't left for everything for me to balance, if you will.
Right.
It's a family balance. And then as our kids got older, I think I did a podcast about how to get ready for summer when your kids are home last year.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that we did even with the kids, and I think the boys made comment about it, was they had chores to do. They had things to do to help out around the house. So that especially during summer or in those times where I still needed to work, and they were sitting around waiting, it helped the entire family keep moving. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what? I get it's different for everybody. Like I said, I'm really blessed that my husband's a school teacher and he doesn't travel for work. He's not at the office till 10 p.m. And that's where I think you really can't compare yourself to other people, because everybody has different advantages and disadvantages when it comes to growing their business. And that has been huge for me. He can hold on to the kids after school for an hour or two so that I can get my work done. So it's just been a really good conversation that him and I have had to kind of figure out what roles we play in this family and how that works and what works for him and what works for me. And, we trade off. Sometimes I'm like, oh, can you take them this morning and I'll pick them up? Like, is that okay? And we work around each other. And it's been really, because that's a huge transition going from, being a stay-at-home mom to working. It's like when I was stay-at-home, all the laundry was clean and folded. The house was, the fridge was full of groceries. There was a meal plan. And then all of a sudden my business started picking up. It's like, well, we're going to Chick-fil-A, guys, So there's definitely you got to give yourself some grace during that period of transition.
We're still giving ourselves grace in the period of all of this,
right? It's always ever changing. I think
it's always.
Yes. There's still so many years ahead of me. I always think, I've at least got 15 years, I think, so there's going to be a lot of growth and change. Like what my business is today is, I don't think it's going to be the same 5 years from now, 10 or 15.
Right. Mine hasn't been the same year to year to year. I mean, some things always shifted. And I'll tell you one of the I guess the fun and interesting dynamics to owning a company like this, Alyce, and making some of the trade-offs, which we all make them, right? Whatever they are, is that I constantly have an opportunity, and so do you and others, to reevaluate what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So because I own it, I don't have to stay in the same way that I started, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not still working 20 years later around a crazy schedule when I don't even have any kids living at home anymore.
Right.
I get to shift and I get to change. And then it's been really cool for me. I kind of felt like there was this wild pack of horses and that I was on the back, holding them back for years because I had other things that were more important to me, other decisions and choices that were more important to me than letting it run. And then I can remember saying to my husband, when our youngest went off to college, it might have been his senior year, I said, I'm starting to let out the reins, and I'm just telling you that when I do this next year, when he leaves. And while I was, I went through the same kind of feelings of sadness and all of that when our youngest went off to school, there was an excitement there too, because it meant that I got to spread my wings and do something that I had intentionally been not doing because I wanted our family to look a certain way. And then when I did it, oh my goodness. I've now had to put limits on myself to stop working and to stop doing it because I loved it so much. I was enjoying it. It was like it was almost like being let out and told you can finally go run the race.
Right. And how awesome that we have a job that we love. I told my husband the other day the same thing. I said, I'm getting antsy. Like, I feel like I want to grow. I want to do something. I don't know what that looks like. But then I have to reevaluate. And I'm like, is it time yet? Is it time yet? And it might be little baby steps. And, but you do kind of feel that way when you're a go-getter or a hustler. I don't know if have you done the Enneagram test?
I've done it two or three times.
Okay. What are you? What number are you?
I don't know.
Okay, so I'm a 3. I'm an Enneagram 3.
I'm thinking I'm a 3.
I think you're a 3.
Sure I'm a 3.
It's the achiever. And
yes, that's me.
Yep, that's me. So it's
the first time it came back with a 1 and a 3, and the second time it came back as a 3.
Yeah, the 1 is the perfectionist.
When I read it, I'm not a perfectionist. So yeah. I'm pretty much more of a 3.
Well, I got similar to you. I got a 3 and a 1, but the distinction for me was that a 1 wants everything done perfectly, and a 3 just wants to get all the tasks done as efficiently as possible, and that might mean cutting corners sometimes. And I'm like, that's totally me. Like, I'm all about the efficiency and let's get this done. And I walk into something and I'm like, this could have been done better, and here's the steps to do it. And
that's me. I mean,
down to the T. So I feel like that makes it very difficult to like rein it in and slow it down. And
it is. Even in Strengths Finder, my top strengths are maximizer and achiever and strategist. And so I have lists. I don't stop until it's completely done. I'm not like a 3/4 of the way kind of get it done. I want it done, wrapped up with a bow and checked off and move on.
Right.
I'm going to clear it from my brain. And because I'm constantly looking for ways to improve, it's the maximizer piece. I want to keep moving and going and doing. I struggle sometimes with rest.
Yes.
Right? Even self-imposed rest, sitting down and doing nothing. And it's so funny. My family will say, Mom, you just need to sit down and rest, and you just need to chill. And so I'll sit down and try to sit down, and I will tell myself, Michele, you need to chill. All right, we're going to have a chill session. Let's turn on the TV. Let's chill.
Yeah.
And I can either find myself sitting with my phone, and my husband's like, what are you doing? Like, I'm watching TV. He's like, you have your phone here. I'm doing both.
Multitask. Maximizer.
I'm all good. And so, but if I ever stop everything and really chill, then here's what I get. What's wrong? Are you okay?
Right.
I'm like, come on, people. You told me that you needed me to chill. Yeah. I'm chilling. Let me chill. And then I turn around and go, forget it. I can't do it. So I get up and go do something else. But I have had to learn, and am continuing to learn, if I'm honest, how to be done and how to walk away and how to limit, because I don't have those external forces limiting me like I did when I was raising my family. And so now the thing that makes me stop is my husband has readjusted his workday. So he used where his company was located, he would leave at 7 a.m. and come back in at 7 p.m. So I had a very long day to work and he wasn't here. So it didn't matter. No kids were here.
Right.
It was me and two little dogs getting work done.
Yeah.
And so now, though, he's shifted his day and he gets in between 5 and 5:30. And that has made a big difference. And so I go to work earlier, but I'm doing my best to be off between 5 and 5:30 when he comes in, so that we can work out, grab dinner, do whatever to have time together in the day instead of me sitting in here another hour or two.
Yeah, I tell my husband, I'm like, can you text me? Because he comes home at different times of the day. Sometimes he might get home at 4:30 or 5 or 5:30. And I tell him, I'm like, I need a text when you're on your way home, because I need to mentally start to disconnect from work. Because the kids come in and they're so excited. They're like, Mom, 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 Mom. And, I don't want to have an attitude where I'm like, hold on, guys, I'm finishing this email. So, and that happens. But I'm like, babe, send me a text so that I can start to like close out my work day, and I can embrace the kids. I can embrace you with big hugs and kisses,
Harrison made the comment on the Boys podcast. He said that when he started working, that he realized that he was able to get in the truck and drive home and have that decompression time after work. And he recognized that his dad had it. He said, and Mom, he said, what I never realized was you never got it, because you got up from one room that was your office and walked through the door, and you were mom and wife, and we placed demands on you. And I thought for a 24-year-old that was extremely insightful.
Yes.
Yeah, because he realized mom didn't get that downtime. What you're asking your husband to give you is a heads up so you can wind down your mental processes so that you can be totally present for them. Right? And that is one of the difficult things of managing family and managing a business. I remember the boy saying to me one time, we would rather you not be here physically if you're not here mentally.
Yeah.
Because it feels worse. It then is a reminder of the fact that we don't have you in this moment. And so trying to manage that. I love that idea. Just give me a text and tell me that my husband does that.
Yeah.
He'll Skype me and he'll say, I'm leaving work. I know I've got 30 minutes to get wrapped up if I want to be able to, like you said, greet him when he comes in and have my own brain kind of dumped and ready for the night, and for family time.
Right.
And it's a great heads up. So that might be something, anybody listening who doesn't can do it. Let me ask you this, Alyce, how do you work out travel? And I know with littles, that's hard. And many people that I talk to will say, I'm in a period of, I'm not really traveling for my business right now to go to market or to do all these things. However, when my kids hit this age, it's easier. How have you worked travel? And I know you and I met at market in the fall, so I know you travel. How have you worked that into the balance of life and business?
Yeah, so I went to my very first market in Las Vegas about 6 months after I started my business. I went on that VIP red carpet with Jackie and Deb. It's an incredible tour if you haven't been on it, but that was kind of my first trip. And I still remember going up to Jackie at the end of the tour and a couple of the women there who were much older than me and had, children that were in college. And I remember walking up to them after the trip was over. First, I had no idea that I could buy to the trade. So I was like, what? This was all new to me. I felt like I just got all this incredible information that was going to help me take my business to the next level after only being in business for 6 months. But I remember walking up to them feeling so much gratitude. And I just started tearing up because I was thinking about the fact that I was scared to leave my kids. I was scared to take my very first business trip. And, I drove there, but it was still scary at the beginning. And even after that, I did my very first high point. And that was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting on a plane and flying across the United States without my family. And I mean, it's funny to look back now because, just in the last, I went to KBIS in Vegas, and then I was in San Francisco for Design Influencers, and I was at High Point in October. And it's funny that now I don't even think twice. I still miss them, but the first couple times it was tough. They cried when they dropped me off at the airport. I would start to tear up. But thankfully, my husband's a school teacher. He's great with kids. So, at the beginning, I actually had a friend that had to watch my kids. I think that first trip, she may have watched the kids before school because my husband had to go into work early or something like that. You got to do what you got to do to make it work. And it's worth it. You need that. As a mother, I needed to get out and meet other designers and have time to be inspired. And that's really been so, so valuable to me. And I'm so thankful to my husband that he holds down the fort while I'm gone and does an incredible job at it.
It was funny. I was the same way. I remember the first time I did all of this, writing all these things out. I planned all the meals. I did all this stuff so that I could leave. Yeah. And now I'm like, goodbye, good luck with food. It's totally different. But those first couple of times, and then I miss my husband. I miss my boys. But when I got to the conferences or to the events, and the amount that got poured into me, it actually propelled my business faster. Yeah. It pushed me forward. It gave me confidence. It gave me a tribe. It gave me the idea that I wasn't by myself in all of this. And I think that is also what pushed my business faster than I could have done all alone at home, thinking I'll wait 5 to 7 years to go. I'm not saying I could go to all of it all the time. I certainly had to be selective, as all of us do. But oh my goodness, getting out and actually having those relationships built in the industry. And like you said, learning, oh my gosh, I can actually buy to the trade. I can do this thing. This is how you do that. It's that much easier than I thought. Or here's a resource I didn't even know about. And so even on my husband's side, when I came home excited about my business and about the opportunities, and I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do that, and look, we could go this direction or that direction. He was so excited for me.
Yeah, and I always bring something back.
Yeah, and then I did the same thing. And then he started looking for opportunities for me to step out. Hey, did you want to go to that?
Oh, that's so cute.
Because he saw, and we had been in corporate. He knew what those kinds of things did in his own environment. Yeah. And he didn't begrudge me that, even if it meant and he worked corporate, so he was gone all the time, and we had to really work it around. Like you said, we had to pull in the tribe. I mean, I had neighbors getting the kids off the bus, and, I would pay them back by getting their kids off the bus at another time, but just kind of pulled together in our community of supporters for me to be able to do those things.
Yep, absolutely.
And it pays off, right? It absolutely pays off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, my business would be so different if I hadn't gone to all those markets. And now at the beginning, it was like, oh, this is fun. Now it's like, I have to go. Like I have to go. This is like necessary for my business.
That's right. That's right. So let me ask you this. What is one of your next profit goals in your business? What are you looking forward to doing next?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, I just started working. I don't know if I told you, but I'm working with Emily at Bean Countery.
Excellent.
So that's exciting. She's cleaning up my books. I have now gone through 2 bookkeepers in the past 2 years. So I'm excited to get my books really tight. I mean, they weren't a terrible mess, but I really want to hone in and figure out, like, based on those numbers, how I want to move forward. And like I said, I'm at a place where, my income has been very consistent over the past 2 to 3 years. So I kind of got to decide, do I just want to be content with that and continue keeping it where it's at? Or do I want to take a step and grow? And my husband and I have talked about, do I want a storefront or an office outside of my home? But I honestly don't know that I'm ready for that. I love that I can pick the kids up from school and bring them back home, and I can still work in my office if I need to. There's a lot of things that I love about having a home office and no overhead. That's huge. But I have really been considering, I've had a couple part-time and a full-time employee, and I'm trying to decide if I want to bring somebody on again. I feel like I'm traumatized from all the hiring and saying goodbye,
You're right. It is. That's painful. Well, okay. So I'm so glad that you were able to connect with Emily. She is so good at, helping you get your books cleaned up and in order and just make sure everything's in its place. And I love working with her. I'll make sure I put a link to her podcast for anybody that wants to go back and listen to that in the show notes. And, just even having a good handle on that will move you forward. Yeah. And then let's just give a moment of grace here for the hiring and separation that we have with employees. It's not easy.
No.
This is not easy. And that's why the whole, hire slowly, fire fast is really great information. But it can make you a little bit
weary.
Yeah, and shy about doing it again, right? Especially when it wasn't an awesome experience the first time. But it's like anything. You find a way, you work it out, and you'll move forward. So you'll either change up your business practices and offerings in such a way that you don't have to hire.
Yeah.
Or you'll keep them in a certain way that may necessitate your hiring. But as long as we work on your hiring processes, then, hopefully we can do it with a little bit better outcome.
Yeah.
But you don't know if you don't try. And so
Right.
Kudos to you, Alyce, for trying.
Yeah, and they've all been great hires. It just has not worked out long term. And I think that's the hard part. And it is a lonely business when you're doing this by yourself. So, not only is it nice to have somebody that is task oriented and can, help you in that sense, but it's just nice to have, a partner in crime, somebody else alongside to, help motivate you at times and walk the journey with you.
I agree with that. And, it used to be that when we hired people thinking we'll be together for 5 or 10 years. Now people are taking jobs and 2 years is considered a long time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just getting to know people good in 2 years. Right. I don't want them to go.
Yeah.
And so that's a bit of an adjustment. We definitely don't stay places as long as we did. I remember my parents, they took a job and they stayed there until they retired.
Right.
Not to say they didn't move around within the company,
yeah.
but they were there.
Yeah.
That was it. And it's just not that way these days. And so that does make it a little bit harder when we want to build firmer and stronger relationships with people.
Yeah, and it takes a while to train, even just like the onboarding and payroll, that aspect of it, and then to train them on all the processes and all the systems and everything like that. It's, it takes about 3 months, I think, to do all of that.
At least.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Alyce, for coming on and having such a great conversation about family and balance and choices and decision making and being intentional with all of that. Seasons of busy, seasons of rest, how to work it out, involve your tribe. I mean, we covered a lot of ground today. And I really just thank you for sharing your perspective on all of that. We'll have it all in the show notes, but tell people where they can find you. Where are you hanging out these days in social?
Sure. I am on Instagram at The True House, and my website is thetruehouse.com.
Perfect. Well, we will, if anybody's not connected, get connected, but we will make sure we have all that in show notes so they can go in and find it. And Alyce, I wish you much success, and I can't wait to see where your business goes and how you take it there.
Thank you so much, Michele. It was such a great time this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
I'm so thankful to Alyce for spending time with us today and sharing, her journey and how she's looking at success in each season of her life and in the lives of her children. And I hope that you have found this to be a podcast of support. I would also ask that if you need assistance or need help, please search me out on one of the channels. You can find me on Instagram at Scarlet Thread ATL. You can find me on Facebook at Scarlet Thread Consulting, or in my group, Build a Profitable Business for Interior Designers in Workrooms. My website, scarletthreadconsulting.com. Reach out and let us help you, because we're here for you, because profit doesn't happen by accident.